The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondell.
Shotguns and moonshine, you'll take your vows today. Those Appalachian girls know just what to say.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Stage Door Show tonight. This is Dave Hondell, and I have with me a great artist here. He is a country artist, but also infused a lot of rock music and alt country, really. But I want to bring him in right now. Kristian Montgomery out of Boston. How you doing, Kristian?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your time for coming on, and I just want our listeners to know more about you and what you're all about. And I know, being from Boston, I've interviewed a Boston country artist before, and just kind of talk about your your music and just being from Boston and how does that music kind of take hold up there, and being kind of a rock and roll city. How do they take hold of your music up there?
I would say that the rock scene has been a lot more receptive than the country scene. I was 102.5 or Country 102.5's Artist of the Week, and I've been on a couple of other smaller country shows, but the longest running rock show in Boston, formerly on WBCN, has picked up my music and been playing it regularly. It's called Boston Emissions, and they, we've won Song of the Week a couple of times. The other show that, the bigger rock show in Boston, Bay State Rock, has really, been super supportive. I mean, they've played almost every song off my last record at one point or another, and they're always pushing playlists and links to our stuff, and so the rock scene's been very, very supportive. The website, newenglandcountrymusic.com, we had a small disagreement. I told them that they were now my Carol Baskins of the music scene, and so they I think word spread that we had an argument, and so kind of whittling my way into the country scene has been tough up here. But New England's not particularly well known for the country scene, so it's a very small group of people, very wealthy, folks who seem to have a lot of money for advertising and whatnot, and I don't fit in with them. So I would say that my style of alternative country has definitely gotten the ear of the rock and roll industry up here. And I've got a lot of press and a lot of support, and it's been great.
I hear the whispers over ice, with all the creatures of the night. To lavender shame, another world, another name. I bury this, you dig up that. Sometimes the dead keep coming back. So the story goes, you keep throwing them stones. I can't afford my bones. When it's all said and done, I'll match you soul for soul.
And I think it just pays to have a crossover sound. I can't imagine myself ever like thinking, I'm just going to release a country record. I have way too many influences to just, do that. I mean, you got to throw a little bit of rock, a little, this new record, Prince of Poverty, that we have. It's definitely a throwback. There's some old school rock. I mean, you'll hear Chuck Berry. You'll hear a little Elvis. I mean, and there's it gets heavier too. I mean, you'll hear a little Steel Wings. A couple of other heavier bands. So Boston's a great place if you like rock and roll.
Yeah, let me talk about that a little bit, because when you mentioned Prince of Poverty, I mean, the pandemic obviously has been going on for almost a year now, and I understand that you wrote Prince of Poverty and another album of yours, The Gravel Church, during the pandemic. So I usually ask people, what did you do during the pandemic? And it sounds like you were really busy. So let's talk about those two albums. Let's start with The Gravel Church and some of those songs on that album. And does that theme of The Gravel Church differ at all from Prince of Poverty? Is there two different themes to those two albums, or are we looking at kind of the same sound?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a big difference. Prior to the pandemic, I spent 6 months in prison. My family says I was a political prisoner. I made the mistake of telling a probate court judge what I thought of him after a hearing, and it landed me in jail. With my refusal to apologize. It was, all evolved around a divorce and me wanting to be able to be a dad. And Massachusetts is not always the best place for dads to try to exercise their rights. So I wrote most of that album in prison. And when I got out and jumped in the studio, that record was all about healing. It was about, resolution. It was all about, trying to find a light in that darkness where I was. And after that record was released, and we've got, it was pretty critically acclaimed up here in New England, we couldn't play out. There was nowhere to go. And I'm not one for streaming shows. I don't play cover music, other people's music. I'm self-taught on guitar. So I wouldn't know how to play somebody else's songs. I write my own, and there's a couple of songs of other people that Johnny Cash and whatnot, Glenn Campbell. I know a lot of their songs because it was so ingrained in my head as a child. But Prince of Poverty was completely about moving forward. It was about moving on. I mean, I put the Gravel Church behind me, and I said, this is my focus now. And I'd be hard pressed to even remember how to play some of the stuff on the Gravel Church, because I just jumped right into writing new songs. And they've kept me busy. We finally finished mixing everything, and I'm seriously considering just jumping right back in the studio to do another one, because it looks like we're not going to be able to play live music for at least another 6 months to a year. And it took me 6 months to finish the Gravel Church, 6 months to finish Prince of Poverty. So I think I got another one in me. And we're just sending the music out to people, and see if we can get some stuff published and licensed. And we're getting a great response from Nashville to Houston. I mean, I got a review the other day in Ecuador, of all places, that was really positive.
Wow.
So people are noticing it. I mean, just today I had a review in this magazine called Middle 8 that's out of Manchester, England. That was a really positive article. And so people are definitely digging the sound. It's being called new. it's definitely not your happy poppy right wing propaganda country music. It's more thoughtful. I think it's a little bit more emotion provoking, and I think it hits people in the heart.
Yeah, I mean, and I've listened to your music. I love your music. I think it's great, and the sound is, like you said, it's kind of an alt, country sound, and with a little rock infused, which I think, going back to what you were saying earlier, having a crossover sound. I think, first of all, and I talk about this a lot as well, because I think if you're a crossover artist, you're not just country, you're not just rock. You're gonna blend so many different bases of audience. You're not just cornering yourself into one particular genre of music. You're able to, I think, broaden your base of your listenership. And and the other thing I want to talk about, because you and I talked about this before we went on the air, but the song "Five Horses." You started telling me a story about that song, and I wanted to save it for the show. So why don't you talk about that song and when you wrote it and what it's about?
Well, Five Horses started as just a verse and a chorus that I had thrown on YouTube, and I try to record a lot of my stuff on YouTube because I'll forget it, because I write songs fast. And my friend Tim Coletti, who's a bass player, had agreed to work on this project with me. His brother was the famed drummer of a Boston-based band called The Neighborhoods, and Tim and I just kind of sat with the song. I recorded, I came up with a bridge, and I went into the studio, threw it down with an acoustic guitar and a microphone, and Tim came up with this killer bass line. But he was telling me the story about how his wife was sitting at the kitchen table and said, Kristian should write something about the environment, he's so passionate about, stuff that it would be a good song. And Tim said he just so happens to have this idea. So we jumped in the studio, recorded it, added some Native American rain dance war dance songs, and we had found a recording from the 50s, so a little bit more authentic Cherokee dance, Sioux dance. The song was all about this pandemic, but it was written prior to it. I guess it was just written in foresight. But it's a warning. It was a song about, we've lost our way. We had places we used to roam to hunt the buffalo. Mountains we used to climb. Now just dirty skies and dirty sinks, and the song was just about how if we didn't change our ways, the world was just going to become a really nasty place.
There were 5 wild horses where you stand, nothing built by man. There were places that we used to roam to hunt the buffalo. We had rivers safe enough to drink, now just dirty sinks. We had mountains that we had to climb, now just broken skies. Will the world come tumbling down, and there ain't no love to be found? So we're stuck here in our holes in the ground.
And then the plague happened, and that the song was pretty relevant and got picked up by a lot of the bloggers, a lot of the radio stations, and it's been a pretty successful tune. I mean, we get a lot of streams on it, and I think it's pretty meaningful for people. And I don't know. I'm not going to call myself some kind of modern day Nostradamus, but I do think there was maybe a little bit of divine intervention there. I mean, it was just kind of the right song for the right time, and the guys, just everybody who played on it played it so passionately. And we emailed each. When you're in a situation where you can't see each other anymore, and we were just remotely, emailing each other back and forth and getting the creativity going. It really helped kind of keep our spirits up, helped us, feel alive and like we were still doing something, productive, that we were helping in some way. And it's just a really cool tune.
And it's like therapy. It really is. I think, during the pandemic, I think, creative people, need to create all the time. And when you have that time to get together, especially if it's either through Zoom or whatever format, and you can still create music no matter what. I mean, there's nothing better, I think, to kind of get you through a time like that than to write music. But there's another song I want you to talk about, and we also talked about this before we went on the air, but American Fire, because I also like the premise behind this song, which is also timely. So tell listeners about that one as well.
Well, my dad's family is all from Copenhagen, Denmark, and I have to field questions about what our country's doing all the time. I met the president in New York City in the 90s on the Howard Stern show, and I wasn't impressed by him at all. I thought he was just an idiot, that typical trust fund baby. And growing up as poor as I did, was I grew up poor but in a rich town, if that makes sense. And I knew what these little trust fund babies were. I knew what they came from. I knew how, regardless of how much talent I had, they had more resources and were going to be able to get ahead unless I worked twice as hard. And I just thought Trump was just a failure of a human being, back then. And I was after he got elected, and everything that was going on in Kentucky with Mitch McConnell running for office with Amy McGrath, and I really liked Amy. American Fire was just was born, and the first line in the song is, "The president's a fucking liar." And Moscow Mitch is the man to hire. He'll sell his soul to the largest buyer. It's kind of a cheeky rhyme, but it just fits so perfectly. And I'm watching the news, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I guess we'll all burn in this American fire. And even my cousin Biaka in Copenhagen, he was sending me messages all the time saying, your country's on fire, literally, like in California, like, what's going on? And so that song was born out of that. It was just, political frustration, and I just wanted to go right at the jugular of the president and at the Republican administration in general. It's just our country's become so corrupt. Especially, going to prison for what I went to prison for, just trying to be a dad, just goes to show you. It's just a super corrupt place. We got to fix it.
Yeah, just talking to you on the show and before the show, it's definitely you don't waver from your beliefs on anything, which I think is more people need to be like that. And I think I think when we live in a social media world, Instagram world, where you'll see somebody smile for a picture, and then when they're done taking the picture, they go back to being miserable human beings again, which I think happens way too much nowadays. But talk about being an indie artist and not wavering from your beliefs on different things, because I think, being a performer, being yourself, I think there's not enough people out there being themselves. And I think you're going to attract a certain element of audience base, I think, if you're yourself, and you're going to, I think, attract more of a real audience that's going to stick with you for years and years and years, as opposed to just, oh, he's cool now, but you know what? I'm done with him. Let's go on to the next big thing, which I think in America, I think we're that kind of society, where overseas, they kind of stick with somebody no matter what. If they like your music, they're gonna like you, and if they like your approach to life and your approach to your music, they like you even more. What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny. I have a new song that's not on this record, the new one, but it will be on future ones. It's up on YouTube called The Long Gone Blues. And there's a line in it, the grass is always greener where the dogs have been set loose. And that's a really good description of America, about, especially the American music scene. It reminds me a lot of the Hunger Games. It's very manufactured. It's very controlled. And my cousin Sarah in Copenhagen, pulled me aside and said one of the most beautiful things to me. She said, "Kristian, it seems like no matter what, you always follow your heart, no matter what it is. Even, you could go make $1 million, or you could follow your heart. You could settle for comfortable, or you could follow your heart." And I think that as an indie artist, if you look at my social media, you'll usually find me either 100 miles out to sea on the boat. My wife and I, fish for a living sometimes when the day job is not as busy as it should be. I work in construction. But we have a boat. We go out lobstering. We go out tuna fishing. And I have always followed my heart to whatever crazy adventure it takes me on. I've remember going to Managua, Nicaragua back in the early 2000s. And they had just, finished up their last revolution. And I've got pictures on my website of me sitting in downtown Managua with 2 AK-47s and a bottle of tequila in front of me. And it was that day, my bass player in my solo band at the time, that's where he was originally from, said, "You make Hemingway look like a Cub Scout." That guy was pretty lucky. He came from a very wealthy family, and he could afford to go all these places and stuff where I did it on a laborer's budget. And, frankly, I can't tell you how many times I've been driving across the United States and my truck's broken down, and I've said, well, I guess I have to find a job so I can afford to get it fixed to keep moving, and, end up staying somewhere for 2 months, 3 months. There's living in Boston, it's a college town, and I try not to have a chip on my shoulder. I try not to say to myself, these guys, parents buy them guitars, and they come to Boston as tourists, and they start bands, and they have a lot, they have backing and everything, and I've been living in my songs for the past 40 years. It's I think my songs are lived in, and I think my experiences are pretty real, and I think I have a cool way of telling people about them. And that's what I look for in an independent artist. I want to hear the stories that you've lived in. I want to hear the songs that you've slept in. That's what really gets me off. My biggest influences are, the Chris Whitleys and Peter Gabriel and all these prolific songwriters who, when they're singing the songs for the, 5,000th time, they haven't gotten sick of telling their story. It's theirs. And so I think that's what creates that longevity in a career, is when they're really your stories, they stick, and you don't get sick of playing it. You don't get sick of telling it. The little pop cliches, those are, those songs, those are the ones that kill me. I have a good story. I have a good story about that too. Do you remember the band Dada? Dada, yeah. I'm going to Disneyland. Remember
that?
Yeah,
I have, yeah. Yeah.
I opened up for them, and my guitar player, Charlie, who is now a chemist, scientist.
Wow.
He played on Prince of Poverty. He's one of the most talented guitar players I've ever met. He sits down with a piece of music and writes an orchestra. Like, he's just parts. He hears different melodies. But he's also a very physically fit young man. And when we were kids, he kind of looked like Bruce Lee a little bit. And we played with them. I mean, I was a teenager. And Charlie went up to the singer and told him, if you play that Disneyland song tonight, I'm going to kick your ass after the show. And then he proceeded to stand in front of the guy for the entire show. And they ended up playing it. It was the last song that they played, and then the guy ran off stage. But it was funny to see. We're in downtown Boston and watching this guy run to his tour bus, and Charlie just scared the hell out of him.
So you used to play a lot back in the '90s. What were you a solo artist back then, or were you with a band?
I played in tons of bands. And one of my oldest stories, my high school girlfriend when I was 16, I went to the prom with her, was the drummer of Aerosmith's daughter. And for me, it was a really good experience to see how normal they were. Like, I mean, he did not let me out of his sight. Doors were never allowed to be closed. He was a very protective dad, and his daughter was she was a wonderful girl. I think I'm still friends with her on Facebook. But I got to see that scene back then, and I was playing for in high school. I was selling out shows, and it was just a really, really cool experience. I played in this band Bone Dry System. I played in a band called Hybrid Minds with the bass player from this band Letters to Cleo. Played with a couple of other, pretty well-known musicians, and I had a lot of success. And then I stepped away from music for a long time. One of the bigger magazines in town, Metronome Magazine in Boston, I did an interview with them, and they were saying, "Chris, you just kind of disappeared. You got nominated for the Boston Music Awards, and then you were gone. Like nobody saw you." And I got married to the wrong girl, and set me back, many, many years. But you tend to find yourself, and I did, and I'm kind of back on track.
That's good. I'd like to hear stories like that. I think, like I said, I just talking to you again beforehand, and now we just met tonight, but we have kind of similar paths, I guess, and so it's refreshing to hear somebody else has the same kind of path. Me getting back into music, doing music video directing for several years, and it took several years off, and kind of found myself again. So it's really nice to hear that I'm not the only one out there. So. Really nice. But, again, just being an indie artist, I have to ask this question because, if somebody, let's say a big record label came to you and said, Kristian, we want to offer you all this money and, but we're going to control your music. We're going to control what you sing. We're going to control everything about it. But here's a boatload of money. What do you say to that as an indie artist? Because obviously your words mean a lot in your music, but if that was going to change, but you get the offer, what would you do if that ever came your way?
I think I would be pretty honest with them and say that I would have, just as ability-wise, my own musical ability, I think I would have a very difficult time changing or conforming. I honestly, I don't think I have the talent that kind of talent to do it. The songs that I write happen because they're very personal. They happen because I'm not trying to write a specific song. They just kind of come. I don't think I've ever sat down and said, I'm going to write a song tonight about this. Usually what happens is I'm just fiddling around with the guitar and a line pops into my head. That song I mentioned earlier, the Long Gone Blues, one of the lines in it, it's a song about a girl who leaves a guy for a rich man, and then the guy pulls up his bootstraps and makes a music career. And, one of the lines in it is, I saw her in the first row of my show with a brand new set of tits and a face stretched to Ohio.
That's great. That's a great line. I love that line.
It was just, there's just these things that kind of pop into my head, the next line is, now that she's got everything, I guess she wants me too. It's like, it's kind of, that's the same song where it's, the grass is always greener where the dogs have been set loose.
Right.
I mean, I want to tour so desperately. I have a couple of health issues. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and working in construction, especially going out to sea, is scary sometimes. I have to make sure I have my insulin, and I have to make sure that I'm keeping my blood sugars right. And it would be so much easier to do that if I wasn't doing extreme manual labor all the time. And
yeah, right.
My wife and I talk, and she jokes. She goes, "You're like the only rock guy I know that could prolong his life by going on tour."
That's true.
It's this is something. It's my passion. It's something I think I was made to do. I get frustrated. I see a lot of artists out there that I just don't think belong there. That I, just for whatever reason, that chip on my shoulder's there, and I say, gosh, like they've got everything. They've got the look, they've got the website, they've got the plan. They just don't have the musical ability that goes along with it. But they're getting to do it anyway because they've got some money behind it. And if a record label came along and said, Chris, we want you to make records and tour, and that's it, I would say I'm on it. Like I kind of see what happened in the late '90s and stuff with different bands. Bands would put out a record every other year, and it was awesome, and there was so much music and so much creativity. And then slowly but surely that stopped happening. Like, artists weren't putting out records anymore. They were putting out singles. And then, some of the dinosaurs, like Pearl Jam, they'll release a record. And it'll be very nostalgic, and people will go, that's a great album. It reminds me of being 16 again. Not necessarily any, like, real forward, thinking stuff. Like, I'm one of those people who believes you should revel in your age, because whatever age you are, if you're pretending you're a different age, you're never going to enjoy the moment. So, I think that, I would love to just record, an album a year and go on tour. It doesn't take me long to write an album. And for me, talking to my producer and my friends who have played on these records, albums are great representations of a space of time, not a moment in time like a single, but like if you listen to Prince of Poverty, you can almost kind of see like my January and my December. It's a block of time that all of these events happened in, and hopefully people will relate to them and say, I've had a year like that, I wouldn't mind it. Rock stardom could be a hell of a lot better than, I'm living in a cabin right now with my wife where we rent, and it gets pretty cold up here in New England, and we lost everything when I went to prison, so we're rebuilding and trying to make a life, and it's really expensive to live up here. So, I wouldn't mind moving somewhere where my kind of music was a little bit more accepted. I've had offers to Florida, Nashville, Texas, Georgia. So we'll see what happens after this next record comes out.
Well, I have no doubt that it's going to happen, and it's going to happen quickly, because your music is really good, and really enjoyed it, and I'm going to enjoy listening to it more and more. So, let's tell everybody how they can find you on the internet and how social media, how they can get a hold of you.
We're everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon. Our website is kmwkb.com. Really simple. We've we just recently got, hoodies and T-shirts and guitar picks and all sorts of other cool stuff up on the Facebook store or the internet store. I mean, you can pretty much, catch me at any given time of day posting a new YouTube video of a new song idea or a finished song for that matter. And I do a little bit of question and answer streaming and here and there. I do a lot of videos from the boat with me and my wife out in the middle of the Cape Cod Bay in December flounder fishing. So I mean we're pretty much all over. If you Google Kristian Montgomery and the Winter Kill Band, you will find tons of press. I don't think I've seen another band that got as much press as us this past year. It was we were really lucky. People were interested and reached out, and so from just little Q&As to long drawn out articles, it's been great. It seems like folks are genuinely interested in the message, so I'm psyched.
Yeah, man. Well, Kristian, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. And like I said, your music is great. It's a great indie sound, and I love it. It's very unique. And like I said, I can't wait to see where it goes. And keep doing your thing, because whatever we can do on our show to push your music and your art, we'll definitely do whatever we can on our end as well. So thank you so much again for being on my show.
Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the support. It means a lot, and I hope people will take a listen.
Got no use for your testimony. You can keep your sermons to yourself. I don't search for signs, snakes, or prophets. I anticipate my soul burning in hell. If I stumble, please forgive me.